That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and give you every update for every injury situation that's going to be relevant for fantasy football, help you make some start-sit decisions for Sunday. Now, we're getting this video out a little late on Saturday because I wanted to wait as long as we can so we can have all the relevant data. But of course, before we get to the players, I have to give the announcement of the flock hat winners for this video. I said this earlier in the video today, but we had so many people reaching out to me saying that they want flock hats, and no, I'm not selling them. We are just going to continue to do the giveaways through the YouTube comment section. So anytime that you subscribe to the channel, hit a like on a video and leave a comment, you are entered in to win a flock hat that day. And I'm going to bump it up. Since we had such a high demand, I called them, I ordered hundreds of more hats, and I said, hey, get them in here. That way I can also be giving away hats for everybody who uses promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. You will also be entered into these giveaways, and we're choosing 2 random winners for people who made that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK today. Okay, so our first winner is going to be King Tanner, and this is going to be the emails that they signed up with. And no, of course, they're not the full emails. We cut them off because I don't want y'all spamming them or anything. And we also have Taylor Drunken Miller, who also wins a flock hat. So we're going to give away 2 flock hats this video. And keep in mind, if you already use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be entered into the giveaways every single day for the rest of the season. We have hundreds to give away. And also, make sure when you enter into Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK and make that $10 deposit that you just watch that account balance jump up to $20, because they're going to be matching that $10 deposit with you, and come out to a live stream with us because we are going to be going through and streaming every single night, and we'll get some real money fantasy drafts going on Underdog Fantasy where they're doing weekly drafts. Last night we got a draft going just for week 2. I created a monstrous lineup. But yeah, that should be it. Let's go through and let's talk about these injury updates. Pulling up the list right now, and to start us off at the very top, we are going to have an injury update that I know everybody has already heard by now, but we have to talk about the impact that it makes. Josh Jacobs officially listed as out on Sunday. And really quick, I don't know if this is just going to be a 1-week injury for Josh Jacobs as well, because he's dealing with a couple of nagging injuries here. I mean, he is dealing with a toe injury, also dealing with an ankle. And based on the fact that it wasn't like he was questionable leading up until the game, and then it came down to 90 minutes before the game, they had him on the field and they go, okay, no, you can't play. We're going to have to rest you today. If it was that scenario, I would be willing to say that Josh Jacobs would most likely be playing in week 3. But since they ruled him out so early here, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're going to be able to get Josh Jacobs back for week 3. We may be in for a 2-week span where Kenyon Drake is going to be the lead running back here. Yes, you heard me right. Kenyon Drake is going to be the lead running back. I know a lot of people want to come over and tell me, Mason, did you not hear the report? They're saying it's going to be Peyton Barber. No, it's not going to be Peyton Barber. You look at Kenyon Drake, and this is a player that got paid $11 million guaranteed to go over to Las Vegas. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily have that familiarity with NFL contracts, but $11 million guaranteed for the running back position on a second deal, that is a monstrous number. I mean, if you're looking at the replacement in Arizona for Kenyon Drake, James Conner actually got paid less than $2 million guaranteed. A night and day difference between the 2 running backs. And this type of investment tells us that Kenyon Drake was always going to have a role on this offense starting in week 1. That was going to be a passing down role. And we know that Kenyon Drake does have the upside to turn into that 3-down workhorse running back. We have seen it before. Now, it's very surprising going back to 2020 with Arizona is that they did not decide to use Kenyon Drake in the receiving game at all. Y'all have to remember that Kenyon Drake last season was used as the first and second down grinder. This was someone that was getting about 15 carries a week, and he was horrible for fantasy football purposes. And I want to remind everyone, I hated Kenyon Drake in drafts last year, but the reason that he was horrible is because he wasn't getting any of the usage in the receiving game. That was going over to Chase Edmonds, and also the touchdowns at the goal line. Kyler Murray was just vulturing so many of those. And we know what the number one thing correlating for fantasy football production is not the raw amount of touches that you'll see. Instead, it's the raw amount of valuable touches that you will see. And those valuable touches are designed as carries in the red zone, as well as targets out of the backfield. So here, when you're looking at a Kenyon Drake, you have to know that all of a sudden he is stepping into this team and they're going, okay, well, we don't have Josh Jacobs. We know 100% Kenyon Drake's getting every single target out of this backfield, because I can tell you right now, there's a 0.0% chance Peyton Barber is going to really get anything in the passing game. And then also, who's going to be the running back that they're actually leaning on in the red zone? If you look at how effective Kenyon Drake was in the red zone this past season in 2020, I think that Kenyon Drake's actually a much better play to be going and having that red zone role. So I'm not expecting Kenyon Drake to turn into Ezekiel Elliott, turn into Derrick Henry, where all of a sudden he's a running back that's seeing 25 touches every single week that Josh Jacobs is gone. However, we know the new age of running backs, these guys that I was telling y'all to go target in your fantasy drafts, and DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne. These are going to be the players that you are comparing Kenyon Drake to, and that no, they're not seeing every touch, but they're getting all the valuable touches. It won't matter if Peyton Barber comes out and gets 11 carries between the 20-yard lines. I hope that Peyton Barber gets 11 carries between the 20-yard lines, because that's going to keep Kenyon Drake fresh. Hopefully that's going to boost up the efficiency that you see for Kenyon Drake in those high leverage touch situations. And we really have to go through and do some math on this. And this is my projection right now for Peyton Barber this week. Let's say Peyton Barber gets 11 carries between the 20s. He comes away with 38 rushing yards. He comes away with 1 reception, 4 yards. I mean, it's going to be nothing that's going to equate to about 5 fantasy points he's taking away from Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is the running back that you want here. If we would have had this injury to Josh Jacobs ruling him out to start the year, I honestly would have had Kenyon Drake in our must-start running back video. Go and play Kenyon Drake. Now, our next running back is going to be someone that we have drafted in a considerable amount of leagues coming into this season. And oh my gosh, I was terrified whenever they ruled him as an inactive in week 1, Zack Moss. And here was Zack Moss. So we finally get clarity on why he actually did miss last Sunday. And the reports are saying that he missed with health concerns / injury concerns at the same time. So it is fantastic to hear that. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what we had coming out of San Francisco with Trey Sermon, where Kyle Shanahan was saying, oh, Trey Sermon missed this past week. He was inactive because he wasn't a top 3 running back. There, you have to be a little concerned, but Zack Moss just sounds like it was based on the injury that he was dealing with in the preseason. And all reports are saying that Zack Moss looks great this week. So I would actually expect that Zack Moss is going to be playing. Now, of course, you can't be putting Zack Moss into your starting lineup, especially whenever we know that at best, at his 100% strength, he is still that borderline running back 3. I mean, this is more so a guy that has upside if Devin Singletary gets injured. This is more so a guy that you're going to be using during the weeks that your team is dealing with a ton of buys. But for now, Zack Moss looks like the only impact that he is going to have coming back to this offense is that we have to bump down Devin Singletary. We've had a lot of questions this week for whatever reason. People asking me if they can start Devin Singletary. No. You cannot start Devin Singletary, especially not now when it looks like Zack Moss could easily be playing this week. So if you have Singletary in your lineup, turn off this video right now to go make a different change. And now our next running back is going to be Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon is going to be active this week. We're throwing him in here. I know it's not an injury, but you are looking at it and saying this is one of the most polarizing situations that we have in fantasy football currently. And the reports from Kyle Shanahan were saying, no, Trey Sermon not dealing with an injury, just wasn't good enough to be active last week, which of course is concerning. I was avoiding Raheem Mostert for a ton of reasons, including his injury history coming into the season. And for that reason, whenever we were avoiding Raheem Mostert, I was drafting Trey Sermon everywhere. So it looks like it may be an ugly day if all of a sudden we're playing in a world where Elijah Mitchell is the starting running back for the entire season. I think that Trey Sermon is not someone that you can be playing this week, even though he's active. I think he's more so the guy that we expect to take over halfway through the year. Now, our next update is going to be Will Fuller is out this week with a personal reason, and Brian Flores decided to decline on the question on if Will Fuller was going to be coming back this season, which of course hurts me. It hurts my bank account. It hurts my wallet as I drafted Will Fuller in over 20% of those underdog drafts. Y'all know we were talking about entering into underdog, getting a chance to get a flock hat, also supporting the channel a ton, also getting $10 added to your account. But over there, we did over 200 real money drafts coming into the season. I know y'all watched us all stream them. And I drafted Will Fuller in about 20% of those. So I am really hoping that Will Fuller makes it back as a wide receiver that we know does have elite spike week potential. Now, we don't have any clarity on what's going on with this personal life. Of course, it's very concerning, and I'm wishing the best for Will Fuller. But from a fantasy football perspective, now this is going to make it where Tua Tagovailoa, you can't consider starting Tua for now. I mean, especially with a tough matchup going up against Buffalo. But at the same time, I mean, Jalen Waddle looks like a much more appealing play. So if you have Jalen Waddle, I think that we would have most likely been telling everybody at the beginning of the week to have him on your bench. But now, if I told you to bench Jalen Waddle at the beginning of the week in any of the questions that you asked me, I mean, we're taking that back because without Will Fuller, it's a completely different situation where his targets look a lot safer. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be a small note, but Jameson Crowder looks like he is expected to play this week. And if Jameson Crowder does play, then I think really the only adjustment that we're going to have to make is you're going to have to bump Corey Davis down slightly given the role that Jameson Crowder will play in the slot. I mean, you weren't playing Elijah Moore anyway this week against New England. And I mean, you're not playing Jameson Crowder. So really the only impact that this makes is Corey Davis has to be lowered in your projections just slightly. And it's also a very difficult matchup going up against New England. Corey Davis looked like a stud this past week. I'll say we're probably looking to sell Corey Davis high because Elijah Moore is going to expand his role in this offense as the season progresses. And Jameson Crowder coming back and playing this week. I think the target share is going to slightly dip for Corey Davis. Still love Davis the player, but I think this just confirms the fact that we did have him as a sell high this week. And now our next wide receiver is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. And going back to what we were talking about with Josh Jacobs here, it is very concerning that Odell Beckham Jr. was listed as out halfway through this week. It's not like they got to Sunday morning and they were like, okay, you know what, Odell, you're not going to be good to go. We'll just sit Odell for now. He can make it back this next week. No, I mean, if they are ruling him out halfway through the week, that tells us that Odell Beckham Jr. is probably pretty far away now. One thing that makes me want to just not completely overreact is the fact that they are going up against Houston. They are 12.5-point team favorites. So maybe they viewed it as a week where they go, okay, Odell Beckham Jr. will win in this game with or without you. You can just rest it. We don't have to prepare for this week. Maybe that's the positive you can try to spin on the situation. And this does make Jarvis Landry startable now because Antonio Callaway also questionable for this week with an injury. So all of a sudden it's just Jarvis Landry and Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, I think you can expect Landry to be getting the majority of the targets there. So yeah, Odell going out. Of course, you're not starting Odell. I think Jarvis is more appealing. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown got in a limited practice yesterday, so it looks like he is most likely going to be good to go on Sunday. Keep in mind, this is one of the most important games, not only for the Ravens, not only for the Chiefs, but for the NFL. I mean, this game always has some of the highest ratings over the past 2 seasons, and I cannot wait to watch the Ravens and the Chiefs. But with Hollywood here, I mean, I will say that we are most likely going to be wanting to bench Hollywood Brown. While yes, he looks like he's going to play, and while yes, the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to go and just ramp up their overall passing offense if they're going to try to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I just think it's very hard to go through and look at a wide receiver like Hollywood who wins on his speed. We know that player type is, of course, going to be at a higher risk for injury. Just look at Henry Ruggs, just look at John Ross, and here with Hollywood Brown, I'm a little bit worried about that. And at the same time, I mean, I know he had a very impressive week in week 1, but this is a team that historically has had a very low passing volume. And to go along with this, Mark Andrews should be seeing more targets this week. So I think Mark Andrews is actually a very safe option to put in your starting lineup, even though he had a very disappointing week 1. And Hollywood Brown, probably someone that I'm going to look to avoid. Now, our next wide receiver is Brandon Iuke. And y'all know with Brandon Iuke, this was a guy that I liked coming into fantasy drafts. He was someone that I told you to start in week 1. I'm telling you to bench him now just because I don't necessarily think that we can fully believe Kyle Shanahan and what he is saying. But here, Kyle Shanahan did come out this week And he said the reason that Brandon Iuke didn't see a full slate of routes, the reason that Brandon Iuke really didn't get targeted this past week was because the hamstring injury. He confirms the theory that we had as soon as that game happened, that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Iuke, their respective usage was mainly based on the fact that Brandon Iuke was dealing with that hamstring injury. Now, Brandon Iuke has been fully practicing this week. I mean, he got a full practice in on Wednesday. Now, I will say I'm not willing to go out there and just completely believe it just yet. I'm not willing to go and jam Brandon Iuke in regardless. I think that we want to see it before we believe it on the field because Kyle Shanahan has definitely lied to us before. But Iuke, if you are an owner, you have to be a lot more excited. Now, our next player will be Jonnu Smith, and Jonnu Smith is going to be questionable. It looks like he should most likely be playing against the New York Jets, which of course is a great option. But with Jonnu Smith being limited with the hip injury, I think that we're probably just going to be looking to avoid starting him if we can. I mean, this will be a situation where the Patriots don't necessarily need him. They also have Hunter Henry. Now, I know that they want to run a lot of 12 personnel, but just based on a hip injury, it seems a little scarier than what you would have elsewhere. Like if it was a concussion and then all of a sudden he's clear to go, then yeah, we have no reservations. We're just playing him, even though it may not be great for his health. It doesn't really matter for fantasy football. Would be a little bit worried that he's playing a limited role, maybe acting a little bit more as a run blocker rather than going out and just playing his usual role. So Jonnu Smith, I'm going to be a little more hesitant to start. And our last piece of news will be both Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman are listed as questionable, which is scary for this overall offense because if they don't have these wide receivers, obviously T.Y. Hilton on the IR, then this can get very ugly very quickly for Carson Wentz and this offense. So as of now, we don't have official rulings on if Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman will be playing. It looks like Pittman is going to play. Paris Campbell's more so in question. So please make sure you're monitoring this situation. I think, of course, you do not want to be starting Carson Wentz. But if we do have it where both of these wide receivers are out, I think what we would honestly probably do is bump Jonathan Taylor down in our rankings a little bit, assuming that they have less trips to the red zone, bump Chris Carson up, bump Tyler Lockett down, assuming that the Seattle Seahawks will be able to run the ball and easily win this game because if Campbell, if Pittman are out this week, I think it's going to be very hard for the Indianapolis Colts to move the ball down the field. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Y'all know I will be live streaming tonight to answer all of your start sit questions, live streaming tomorrow as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Nothing helps out this channel more. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all and have a great day.